Very warm welcome back to Capital Sports 3.0. I'm your co-host this evening, and of course, that's the last time you'll see that intro. And I think we've made great use of it thanks to Double N. He has been an absolute stalwart with us, and he's going to make up a new one. The new one's actually on the way. I quite like it, and I quite like what's going to happen right away, because in just a moment I'm going to bring in Mr. Andrew Flint all the way from Western Siberia from Tumen. He'll have quite a lot to say about our three topics tonight, because we're going to go into three. So it is Capital Sports 3.0. We haven't moved on to 4.0 just yet. It is 3.0. We've got three amazing stories to go through tonight. One, we just found out about yesterday, a breaking news in the Jannik Sinner case. Of course, that's the Italian superstar tennis player who did quite well, but has some strange people associated with him, and we'll explain the story in a moment. It's also a massive day in history for track and field, for sports. This day in history, 1988, Flo, of course, she won Olympic gold, and she's no longer with us. There's a lot of questions around her, and of course, she is still celebrated in some quarters as a heroine, but more and more as the years go by and people start to speak about it and people start to open up, we realise that she had very much feet of clay. And in our third segment, it'll be a bit of a surprise for Mr. Flint, because I know he enjoys this topic, this piece of sport, and we've discussed it before, but I'm going to bring him in right away now to speak with Jannik Sinner. Andrew, before we get into things, because we've been off aware for a little bit while, I want to play something, let's say an example of this young superstar tennis player, his fitness, his resolve, his ability to stay focused no matter what the rally, no matter what stage of the season, no matter what stage of the tournament or match. Of course, it's completely natural, he says. Watch this and we'll discuss it.
Deserves a standing ovation.
Offers in the commentary box, we can't blame them. Their job is to talk about tennis, to talk about what they see, not to believe their own eyes, but they just need to talk about what they see happening at that moment, because of course young Sinner has had two positive drug tests. They were appealed by the World Anti-Doping WADA, of course. They have tried to fight back against the situation, because of course he was cleared by Castleball wrongdoing. They've said that basically that he can continue playing while the appeal's being heard and so on, but WADA have decided to take a step forward and said no, they're going to appeal against it. Now, of course, the 23-year-old, he turned around and said, his quote, "Obviously, I'm very disappointed and also surprised of this appeal, to be honest, because we had three hearings. All three hearings came out positively for me. Positively, just like his drug tests." Now, Andrew, we all know the story behind it. He said that he had this performance-enhancing drug in his system because his masseur had cut his finger, and had rubbed on this special stuff on his finger before giving him a massage, and he transmitted it to Mr. Sinner. Now, is Sinner a saint, or did he make a sin? But Andrew, how far can we believe this? Because it's really stretching credibility to say that because of a massage, not a burrito, not kissing someone in a nightclub, but because of a massage, that suddenly he's infected with something that makes him play better.
Well, I mean, the first reasonably obvious point I'd make is, why is he being massaged with illegal substances in the first place? I mean, okay, you can say the number of stories we've had to come up with about how a substance got into my system. I'm almost pleased he didn't go too ridiculous, because it's insulting our intelligence. The whole burrito, grandmother's ointment for something or other. I mean, it's very, very hard anymore to really separate fact from fiction, honesty from covering up performance and performance-enhancing substances. You look at the man, and any elite tennis player nowadays has the most phenomenal levels of fitness. It is just beyond comprehension what they can do, cleanly or not. I mean, you have to be I always say this every time we mention this topic. You have to be a phenomenal athlete and sportsman just to even get to the stage where doping makes a difference at a world level. But when you come out with a story like that, what I don't understand is that I actually think it's one of the more stupid excuses, whether there's any elements of truth in it or not. It's one of the stupid excuses I think I've heard. Because, well, like I said to start with, I mean, that's how the system got into it. So you're admitting that your masseur used substances to massage you,
well, he used it on himself, Andrew. The masseur, the physio said that he had cut his finger, had used a spray, which a steroid is in, and then used to massage. I mean,
be careful then. If you're a masseur, don't massage somebody immediately after if that is something that could legitimately happen. If you're a masseur for a top level sportsman like Jannik Sinner is, the number one tennis player in the world, you do not use a substance, anything, anywhere within 2 or 3 days of touching the sports star that might have any substance. You just simply don't do it. I mean, if you do, you really shouldn't be a professional masseur. I mean, how stupid can these people be? I don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. Almost certainly this is going to be, the appeal will be kicked out or upheld. It comes after another, as you know yourself, you report on this, a load of tests went missing from the Paris Olympics. It turned out that 2/3 almost of athletes weren't tested before the games, but that's nothing new. I mean, that really is. I know that people think, oh my God, 60%. No, it's don't, folks. When you hear this number, weren't tested before the games. Some of them were, some of them weren't. And to be honest with you, most of the ones who weren't tested at all, they didn't go anywhere beyond, turning up on the track and waving their hands, getting their name announced, their country announced. So basically, USADA launched this attack at WADA, and WADA, to deflect, said, we're going back after Sinner. They could have done it last week, they could have done it after the previous decision, but they didn't. It does look very, very strange, and I agree with you fully. If you are working with an athlete, if you are responsible, you know the doping code, you know what not to do when you do, it's really stupid. It's like a Norwegian, cross-country skier using a lip balm. She, sunburn on her lips, and she's using one that has clearly marked on the packet, that it has a banned substance inside. Yeah, it doesn't make sense, Andrew. It doesn't make sense. I'm going to watch this story, of course, to see what's going to happen, because it will be interesting. Trust me when I say this, it's going to get a little bit crazy. And it could start with fire, it could burn up tennis. We'll see. So we'll go to a very, very short break and come back with some more doping news, of course, this day. Now, Florence Griffith-Joiner, I will try to explain it to a young guy in the 80s growing up, a teen in Ireland. She was something superbly powerful. She was everywhere. She was a pin-up. She was literally power, passion, power, and absolute utter speed. And when you saw her on the track with her long nails and her hair and everything, it was just unbelievable. Something from a different planet. At the time, the US, of course, had herself and Carl Lewis, the twin towers of sprint and track and field. She was amazing. But what people didn't know about until an awful later was that she was involved with some fairly nasty people, and she had been involved in a doping system through the American high school and collegiate level, all the way through to professional track, that ended up breaking down her body and costing her her life. Andrew, just to put like that, this Florence Griffith-Joiner was an absolute pin-up. I mean, she was a superstar. We see here, I mean, this is her fastest woman in the world, still holds the world record. When we think about it, it really, it baffles belief that, for example, 3 years ago, the US Amateur Track and Field Association were still celebrating her.
Well, look, I mean, the on a basic level, when you've got somebody as high profile, as iconic as Flojo, attention is going to be focused on him. I know I'm stating the obvious, but it's this is a really wrong way to look at it, but I can't avoid thinking it. I believe that there's a balance. The positive effect of drawing people towards the sport and how many corners, how much they were cut, how involved, how knowingly involved with, let's say, unsavory habits and people. You can't just allow people to dope and be brilliant and therefore hide it up to create a very false image of somebody, but it drew attention. It drew your attention all the way across the ocean, around the world. Alan, honestly, it's my first reaction is when people pick up a story, it could be true, it could be not at this point. Before it's absolutely verified, there's two parts. One is, well, how did somebody win those titles? How did they become so successful? And the other half is, well, you're just going after them because they're successful. Well, it's like, well, it's a bit of both. Of course, there's a very, very high chance that anybody who broke world records, and especially that have stood for so long in a sport like athletics, it does raise questions. Well, how on earth is that possible to set such a record that nobody can break it for so long? God, I get torn between this. The very first time I joined Twitter, for example, it was over doping. It was around the time when Lance Armstrong admitted all of his now very well publicized transgressions, shall we say. And I was just furious at it because I thought, you have lapped it up, become a global superstar on the back of cheating. There's no two ways about it. You admitted it. And straight away, someone else launched into me the very first tweet I ever had to reply to, saying, well, it balances out with all of the good work you did, raising money for charities, raising the profile of a sport that perhaps wasn't as popular as it could have been. And I mean, if 10 years later, I'm thinking, well, maybe there's 5-10% of justification behind that argument, but it just doesn't justify not looking into the details deeply and being absolutely certain. You can't just simply say, oh, well, she did a reasonable amount of good for the sport, so whatever she may or may not have done, it doesn't really matter. It does matter, but there's a limit to how brutal we ought to be, I think. I know that sounds like I'm sitting on the fence, but I do believe the two things go hand in hand. And we know it's obvious to be at the absolute, not just very good, not just internationally renowned, not just globally renowned, but world champion level of sport. It is, I don't think, being overly dramatic to say, very, very difficult to achieve that without some help.
Yeah, it's the same with tennis. It's the exact same with tennis. We do know for a fact that in order to get into the top 20, you have to play a hell of a lot of tournaments, do a hell of a lot of travel, do a hell of a lot of training before and after off-season, pre-season, and during tournaments and during breaks between tournaments. So in order to recover, that is key. So in tennis, to make the top 20, break top 20, I still believe to break into the top 20, 17, 18, 19 in the world, you can do it clean. That's my, again, I'm going against what professional players that I managed, that I worked with would have told me, or have told me, not would have someday told me. But I do think that to stay in the top 20 for a long period of time, you need to be doping. To make top 10, you are definitely doping. And we consider this, that Florence Griffith-Joiner, Lord rest her soul, she holds 100 and 200 world records since 1988. So she holds, for the 100 meters, she did 10:49, and for 200 meters, she did 21:34. People still have not gotten close to her. I mean, there are people, Sherika Jackson from Jamaica last year at the Worlds in Budapest, she got 21:41. So she still is so far ahead of the game, so far ahead of people who have been busted for doping, that we've known were doping, that have admitted doping, but she still has beaten them all and retired very, very quickly after her her triple gold in Seoul in South Korea. Again, as I said, this is someone who basically was everything for America. This was some of America's poster girl. She went on then, of course, for I still think it's quite funny. She was appointed by Bill Clinton to become the co-chair of the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports. This was she actually died while she was in office. The person before her who came in as the co-chair, who would you reckon it is, Andrew? Have a guess.
Oh God, I don't want to guess. I'm dreading this. Go on, tell me.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. So it's just
that was not the answer I was expecting, but that just makes it 10 times better. Oh dear Lord!
A guy who admitted doping and, of course, had to dope to get that amazing physique he had, and of course has had huge health problems when he has brought himself down. So he still works out, but he does an awful less. He works now for cardio rather than.
I don't know, but he's okay. He's okay because he fixes potholes by himself when local governments don't do it for him, and he's a man of the people. So he's a nice doper.
There you go. Okay, we will go out to a very short break, and this break we're not going to play music one for this one. We're going to set up for the next segment, and I know Andrew's going to enjoy this, and you'll enjoy it as well. So we're going to go straight out. Inspiring, nice music, emotional, but of course, it's the cold hard fact of North American, not American, North American sports. A franchise is basically upped and left. Now they're going to play for a short while, we believe. Just a short while. I mean, not. They will be playing in Sacramento, a AAA field, and then they'll be moving to a purpose-built arena on the Las Vegas Strip. And we discussed this before, and we actually had spoken about it on the on radio and also on our show, of course, as well, saying that this was going to happen, but it looked very, very strange, and it was strange to us, of course, being from Europe, not Western Europe, Europe in general, that a team can just literally up and move. They're trying to make the best out of it, Andrew. They are trying to make the best out of it. Of course, this is a club that has been romanticized almost to a pornographic level with Moneyball and, of course, Brad Pitt. I mean, you can't get more pornographic and graphic than Brad Pitt. But the whole surrounding vibe with it that they're leaving behind and moving to Las Vegas, from the sea to the desert, to reverse a popular refrain we hear in many places. How weird is it to feel that like your club has just gone, we're going there because we're going to get more money and a new free stadium?
Well, I mean, it's just a horrible concept to, I would imagine, not even just Europeans. I mean, most sports fans around the world would be just disgusted if their team was ripped away from them. But I mean, if you are in what is quite clearly a very unique sports market that is the USA, and I don't mean that as a criticism, it's a different world that they've grown up in. The marketing geniuses in North America, they can squeeze every last drop out of every product that comes across their doorstep. Then you're going to have to be realistic. I mean, the reason they're moving, if there is an opportunity to make more money, be more efficient at making money, to have a market that supports a bigger stadium, which in theory should feed the club over a longer period, then it takes the romance out of sport. But if it was a matter of survival, where the club really was going bust and would not continue in any form anywhere unless it moved, I think people would have more sympathy with a relocation. But when it's purely just to squeeze a little bit extra or a few dozen $1 million extra, then that's where I just find it grubby and dirty. I mean, it's not for the fans. By definition, it is not for the fans. It is for the owners, the businesses, the sponsors. The whole concept of a franchise, the word franchise, I mean, it just sounds dirty in any concept. You say a franchise shop or outlet or cafe, and instantly it's going to have a slightly more negative feel to it to Europeans, to most other markets around the world. But the USA is different. I'm not saying all American fans accept it. I'm certain they don't. But it has become normalized to the stage, sorry, where not a lot of fan power is really going to change the fact that teams aren't going to be uprooted and moved. I mean, I would never accept it. I would be, if Manchester United were ripped up and taken to even 10 minutes down the road, I would be fuming. I mean, it's a bit more difficult to do that out here, I suppose. Tumen, well, to be honest, if they ripped up FC Tumen and moved them somewhere else, I'd probably be happy because they're so blooming awful at the moment. But I would never accept it. It's not an emotional thing. And as soon as you do it, with the possible caveat that I mentioned earlier, the entire survival of the club depends on it for whatever reason. Other than that, it will never be an acceptable thing to do because you're making it a business. Prioritized decision. Of course, business is a part of sport. No point trying to deny it, but it just feels grubby and dirty and wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I mean, I witnessed firsthand, for example, with Sparta Shulkovo when they went up to the first division in Russia or second division in Russia, and then they moved their franchise or their team to Sochi to give them a team before the World Cup. Very, very well planned. We've seen it before with teams as well in Russia where they just moved them around, and we've seen, of course, with Wimbledon. I still do think that the whole around surrounding Wimbledon, I think there was more fewer than needed to be. I think it was something that was just kind of a once-off. I do think that there were problems in Wimbledon, and there were problems with trying to rebuild the stadium. I do know that Sam Hammam and the people they were going to move to Dublin. That was just mooted.
Yeah,
but that was the strong arm the local council in Merton, I think it was, to give them some help. Personally speaking, my own team that I followed in Canada, which I chose, or I should say chose me, the Montreal Expos, they left after many, many seasons. Now, I understood again why. I always understood why they had to leave, because the stadium they played in was falling down, and they moved to I think it was first to Puerto Rico and into Washington to the Nationals, and it looks like they're going to go back to Montreal. They went in 2005. It was a really strange one, but before that, Washington had lost their team to Texas back in '72, and now they are the Texas Rangers. Seattle had a very good side. The Pilots, they went to Milwaukee, and again, this is very, very simply, this is just how it works. And of course, the Kansas City A's, or the Athletics, became the Oakland Athletics back in '68. So it's not the first move for these guys. Milwaukee became Atlanta. Washington Senators, of course, before they moved away, they were gone to Minnesota. The Brooklyn Dodgers, of course, one of the story teams of baseball, had gone to Los Angeles. And the New York Giants, another story team in baseball, went to San Francisco. And I should say that the Oakland A's, this is not even their second move, because, of course, before they were the Philadelphia Athletics, became Kansas, and then, of course, as we have them right now. And it's just one of those things that just keep moving. It's something strange. North American fans, not just North American fans do seem to accept it, do seem to understand it. We saw the same in Canada with the Winnipeg Jets. And they kind of ride back into it. Is there something different in the mindset between us Europeans and them over the Atlantic Ocean?
Yeah, I mean, there are, as you mentioned, obviously some cases where it genuinely is in the best interest of keeping a club alive at all costs, and I certainly will support that. The whole Wimbledon example in England obviously got a huge amount of coverage, given that it was, like we mentioned, such an anathema to European fans. How on earth can you consider moving a club? I think I can't speak for other fans of other clubs, and Wimbledon as an example, because I'm lucky in the sense that my team, Manchester United, is arguably the biggest branded club in the world right now, and is never going to leave. Manchester is never at risk of that. But some fans, I think, would probably almost stomach the team ceasing to exist and going somewhere else and pretending they're the same entity when they just aren't, and having to find a new team than accepting it. I think some fans probably would be that strict about it. But look, I mean, the mentality, I think there's a temptation for European fans, and I include myself very much in this. There's a temptation to be almost snobbish and arrogant about how sport should be run. Europeans probably have a tendency to, well, I'm saying Europeans, but I do include a lot of other areas of the world as well in this, but probably have a tendency to think, well, look, we're the ones who did it first, so our relationship with the emotional side of clubs is the correct one, which is a little ironic when you consider that Europe is about the most disgusting cesspit of money-making enterprises, UEFA at the very top of that tree, clubs that want to make as much money as they can. The European Super League is something that's not going to go away forever. The new format of the Champions League, designed entirely to fill more pockets. The Club World Cup that FIFA are expanding. I mean, look, this is all European-centric. So European fans cannot sneer, or should not sneer, at American fans or the American market for improving, in theory at least, and in some cases in reality, improving the health, the state, the survival of clubs. If that's what it takes to keep a club going, you cannot argue with that, because people's livelihoods depend on it. It's not just about the romanticism. Hundreds, thousands of people are employed by these clubs, and that is their living. You're just saying, if you're saying kill the club if you're going to move it, well, okay, fine. What about these people who lose their jobs? Not just the people directly related to the club, but the communities around the club on match days, the revenue that it brings with tens of thousands of fans arriving in every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it is. You can't be too snobbish about it. There is that temptation. I still admit I would hate the concept if it was any team connected to me, but I have to also accept sometimes you've got to make tough decisions like this. And if it survives, keeps the club surviving, it can't be all that bad.
That's it. That is very, very true. And I'll leave that last word around. Of course, it can't be that bad if it helps your club survive. And I think that North American sports fans understand it. Andrew, until next week, take care and thank you very much.
Cheers, boss. Catch you then.
Okay, we will go out into the cold, dark night because it's getting colder, well, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. And we'll treat you to something that I think American fans do or will be doing or actually understand that their clubs do. Of course, we're going to go out with House of Pain and jump around back next week with more Capital Sports.